Welcome to the Love Holistic Living podcast, your roadmap to heal and align mind, body, and soul and become intuitive through food, pleasure, and spirituality with your host and Italian friend, Sara. How to overcome your negative self-talk so that your positive self-talk can actually win and prevail. This is the episode for today's Love Holistic Living podcast that actually was requested by one of you listeners. And make sure that you follow on Instagram and you request what you'd like to hear, because sometimes I post on Instagram stories and I ask the audience, I ask you, what do you want to hear? Maybe you want to hear about relationships. Maybe you want to hear about money. Maybe you want to hear about how to communicate with the universe. So one of you asked how to deal with the old negative talk and the positive self-talk, which are in conflicts all the time. Now, this question has so many angles, but before we get started, because I want to give you actionable, tangible steps on how to move forward here, because I want you to win at the end of the day. Make sure that you subscribe, you leave a comment. We're always in conflict with ourselves. I just want you to understand that so you don't think you are alone in this. We are always battling something, whether it's through guilt, shame, old self, new self. And what this question is describing is this conflict between the ego self, so the negative self-talk, and the new self that wants to be creator or that is in creation. Oftentimes, this is a question that someone's asking on their self-healing journey because they are doing the work to dismantle the ego. And I want you to understand that the ego is the created identity of oneself, is the identity that was created at the time of birth, even before, but let's just say in this lifetime, how you were nurtured. So when we have a self-negative talk, we have learned that by someone. We were nurtured either that way. And when I say nurture, I'm being positive here. If you've had one or two parents or caregivers in your past that were highly critical, then you started becoming critical of yourself. And you started believing things about yourself that they were telling you. Because obviously, when you're a child, you place your trust, you place your love in the hands of your caregivers, of your parents. And it's only during adulthood, time, some awakened soul during teenager years, that's usually the rebellion kind of years. But anyway, during the adulthood, right, age, we then start to ask ourselves questions. These questions, the existential question of how did I get here? And am I creating my own reality? And all of the spiritual questions are what's causing you to go into what we call the spiritual awakening journey. And not to scare you or anything, because some people are like, this is so scary. But a spiritual awakening journey is the awakening of your soul. Your soul is meant to evolve, and you're going to start asking yourself wonderful questions that are going to lead you to the evolution that your soul desires. Now, coming back to the negative self-talk, so many people can't break the cycle, and it has become a habit that you probably want to break. And this is what this episode is going to be about. I've struggled with negative self-talk because I was highly critical. I mean, my parents called it the constructive criticism. So as Italians, my parents are highly critical. My whole family is, because Italians, that's who they are. They just want to share their truth, and they have no holding back. They do not hold back in sharing what they think of you And there's always a sense of, I must tell you what I think of you, even if you didn't ask. And so I grew up in that cultural background where everyone is saying something about you and your problems are the whole family's problem. So you don't have a lot of privacy in decision making, whether you are buying a new car or you're dating someone. I mean, please let me know if that's happening in your culture too, because that was my background. That's Italians. That's who we are. So I grew up like that. And at some point, I was so highly critical as a high achiever and nothing was ever good enough. And worst, it was spiraling, and it ended up spiraling in very, very, very negative self-talk, especially around my body. That's where everything started. If you haven't checked my book, Manja, it's a health cookbook that it will help you to create self-love in your life and to improve and implement a healthy lifestyle in your daily life, including, merging the pleasure with health, the pleasure of life, so that life doesn't become restrictive. But my journey started with a really negative self-talk around the body. And if you're a woman listening to this, you are probably very familiar with this kind of negative self-talk. Now, is it yours? Partially, I think it has become yours, but mainly it has to do with society, what you've listened, what someone in your past, family members, friends have shared with you, told you, maybe comments that they said. And so going back to that, when we hear those comments, the natural response that our brain has is to create a story. And our mind is so powerful. When we create a story, then we get attached to the story. And if the story is negative, that is when a program is formed, and that program at a subconscious level will keep you stuck in a cycle. All right, so we are really covering up the basis so you understand what is happening in your mind and at a subconscious level. Okay, so first thing first, you must understand this one thing. And this is also about protecting your energy. I say this all the time, but the mind is so powerful that if you're not protecting it, we can't even create. You can't even create a new habit. So first thing first, remember that there are studies, there's data out there that this is true, that it states that your mind is more negatively programmed by negative thoughts, than positive. When you hear a positive and a negative thoughts, you are going to get more negatively programmed. So you're going to listen more to the negative comment. This is standard. So I want you to understand that. Why? Because now I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to think about what you're listening to in terms of what information are you consuming on a daily basis. Because if your mind is the production of everything that you're surrounding yourself with, your environment, you need to pay attention right now to what is shaping your mind. Are you consuming negative, / horror TV shows, that infuse fear into your life and or doubts, right? I used to be so into horror thriller movies back in the days until I realized this one thing about the mind, and I realized that I couldn't let that happen. I also realized that as an empath, I'm so sensitive that I need always positive reinforcement, and to stay in a positive vibration, I can only listen to positive things around me. that doesn't mean that I'm avoidant. I just know what affects my energy. And so should you. You should know what affects your energy. So right now, think about who in terms of people are you listening to? Are you surrounding yourself with people that are highly critical of yourself? Are you listening to podcasts that inspire, uplift you, teach you really good things? Or are you reading the news, or are you reading, things that are bringing you down? So make sure that you understand that. Then cross over anything that is negative and or create doubts in your energy. Okay, you want things and music and people and information that uplift you. Okay, this is so important in order to reprogram your brain. This is what I do with my clients. Okay, I'm like, from now on, I don't want you to listen to this. You're going to listen to this. Okay, we're going to reprogram your brain and everything you're consuming. So your mind is a sponge. We're going to listen to positive reinforcement. Okay, next thing is we've got to create a new habit. Okay, we're going to create new habits that you can follow every single day. And one of the biggest habit that you can implement right now from today, this is what I give to all of my clients when they come into my program, is from now on, they're going to do a bragging journal. Sometimes we start with gratitude because they need to reframe everything into positive. So you can do a gratitude journal. Don't take it lightly. This is a step that I've done for years now, and it works because when you start seeing the positive, then you start getting into a new frequency and you start seeing miracles, and you're starting to get out of that negative self-talk. You're going to start to get out of that victimhood mentality. Even if that little thing is, I found a penny on the street. Feel lucky with every little or big shifts. Now we're going to go into the bragging journal, which you can choose one or both or do both. Bragging is I ask people to brag about themselves every single day. What can you brag about yourself? And they're like, what does it mean? I'm like, what did you do right? Big or small? What are you happy with about yourself? Maybe it's something that you said, maybe an action you did, but maybe today you reinforced with a good communicative skill set, the actions of your child. Okay, instead of losing it, you were able to acknowledge and remain calm and blah, 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 and so forth. Maybe what you did was you walked to the bus station. You parked the car further away so that you could walk for 10 minutes before and get into the office. Whatever it is, big or small, you went to bed by 10 p.m. Wow. Oftentimes the negative self-talk comes from the fact that we don't see our little achievements on an everyday life. And unless you start creating the habit of every single day writing down at least minimum of 5, then you'll never see it. You've got to get into the habit of seeing it. And at some point, the positive is going to override the negative. Okay? And this is habit formation. I love this kind of exercises. I've done them for the past 5 years now, and they work. Now, what I want you to go into right now and follow me, because there is a layer deeper here of just not listening to the self-negative talk. Is, like I said, the mind is the most powerful tool you have, and it can destroy you or it can create the new you. And at the beginning, you're going to start with these two voices. One is predominantly the one you're going to listen to, and the other one, it's softer. Oftentimes, people start with this negative self-talk that is like so big, and they're always turning to that, the devil on the shoulder, right? Instead of listening to the angel of the shoulder. And you have to, with the new exercises I just gave you, to reprogram your brain to listen to that little angel and to see yourself under a different light. The next thing you're going to do is to become an observer and realize that your mind creates story, because our mind creates experiences. That's how we register emotions and situations, and the date and the couch is through an experience, right? And we create a story. Now, become the observer of the story you tell yourself. Oftentimes, when an event occurs, the event is somewhat neutral. Then we create a story, and then we get a story, and we get attached to the story. Let me give you an example. Actually, this is a real example. When I met one of my current besties, like such a soul sister, we were at an event together. And this event was like a conference, a spiritual conference. I went there by myself. She went there by herself. And we both had a video call before going into the conference, because I was looking maybe to share a room or to share an Airbnb. And we video chatted, because I was like, hey, I need to screen the energy. And I really want to make sure that, the energy is great. And she's like, okay, that's fine. That's who I am. So we got into a call. I did really like her. She did really like me. And she said, okay, I'm going to book my room. There is the next room next to me available. So if you want to, book it. And I was like, okay. But we never spoke after that time again. I was really busy, and I was about to go to Italy at that time. So we never spoke again. I went there, I think I missed the 24 hours mark, and that room got booked, the Airbnb. And so I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that people are booking so fast, and I didn't let her know, because obviously I met her once. Now, the story she created was that I didn't like her. And she told me that, because then we became besties. But we met at the conference, and she's like, oh my God, she came over and she's like, hey, this is me. And then we became friends, and she's like, I've got to ask you, what happened? I thought you didn't like me. And I said, no, I was just so busy, and I forgot to book it after our call, and in 24 hours, that room was booked. So she created a story, right, of, oh, she doesn't like me. That's her negative self-talk. And my version of the story was literally it got booked. So I just want you to pay attention to the stories you tell yourself. When you identify the self-negative talk, let's just say, my thighs are big, my belly is soft, she doesn't like me, he doesn't like me, okay? Write all of those down. It's so important to first acknowledge how much self-negative talk you have going on right now. And oftentimes people do a spiritual bypass, or they are avoiding in looking at where they're currently at. So make sure that you know where you're at. And if it's one thing, it's one thing. If it's 20 things that you're constantly telling yourself that are negative, then you have to have a reality check. So write those things down. And after you're writing those down, ask yourself 2 questions. Is my story truthful? Is my story truthful? Because like I just said in the example, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a story you created. And number 2, is my story kind? Now, the best thing you can do, the best favor you can do to yourself right now is to create a story that is somewhat neutral, somewhat kind. Not only you're going to cultivate self-compassion, but it will help you to continue to direct your attention towards that positive self-talk, towards that little angel on your shoulder. Okay? Ask yourself these questions right now and let me know in the comments. Let me know. 1, is my story truthful? 2, is my story kind? Let me know right now. And always, in order to control your mind, you have to detach from the story you tell yourself. In order to control it, you have to start training today to what you're listening to. Is it positive or negative? Is it reinforcing this negative self-talk and hate and fear and anger? Or is it reinforcing positive self-talk, joy, hope, all of those good feelings? All right? And then detach yourself. Look at it from an observer point of view. Don't get caught up in the middle of your emotions. And then every day, it's a choice. It's a choice to say, wow, this is what my mind is saying. What can I and who can I listen to? It's a choice to choose to listen to a positive/neutral reinforcement every single day. You have to pause. You have to build that self-awareness. And there is no shortcut here. I tell people, this is work. I have trained for years to become this person. At first, it was really, really hard. But in a matter of a year, if you do this every day, oh my God, you'll be a completely different person. And it wasn't until I committed to myself that I saw results. And also, when I started studying successful people, and I was like, what differentiate successful people to the normal people or to who I was at the beginning? It wasn't just that they're daydreaming, they're dreaming big. It was they're committing to bettering themselves, and they're committed to get out of their own mind story. That's what separates successful people or people. And successful, just so you know, it can also be about love. It's not in quantity of money. It's successful and abundant. You can be abundant in so many different ways in life. But it's about the commitment that you have with yourself. So I think the biggest question here is, why are you not committing? It's a little bit of work every single day, but it's a habit you've got to build. And start with one of the exercises or all of them. And this is it for today. Thank you for listening and or watching, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. And a big ciao.